We should move to, I think maybe the last topic that we'll discuss today, which is the theory that originated, I think, in an article in Vulture and was then written about in the New York Times and some other places.
It's unclear. I mean, the Bulwark, right, is actually line dated a couple of days before
Vulture.
Is? Now, who knows what that means?
Okay, so I found that article too. A Sonny Bunch in the Bulwark, who anyway the theory, whatever its provenance, is a fascinating one. It is a way of rereading the second movie. Almost entirely, that completely changes the meaning of the movie. And the theory is this, that the first, 15 minutes of Top Gun Maverick are real. They happen. And Maverick has, he's been living in his hangar, doing his test flight things. The test flight does in fact take place. Yep. But when the plane explodes, Maverick in fact dies. Yep. And so the rest of the movie is, there's different versions of this theory. It's the last milliseconds of his life flashing before his eyes. Yep. It's a purgatory or Maverick in the Bardo type scenario where he's atoning for his sins and revisiting the major episodes of his life and kind of making them right and making peace. And the kind of evidence for this, there are a few bits of evidence for the theory, although it doesn't require any. I mean, this is why it's perfect, because the movie is entirely viewable through the lens that it's a real story, and the lens that only the first 15 minutes are real, and for the last 2 hours or whatever, Maverick's dead and it's a death dream that he's having. The evidence for this is just the physics of the test flight. For the plane to explode at whatever it was, Mach 10.3 he gets to. Yeah. The human body cannot sustain being flung from an aircraft at anything like that velocity. Right. It's just impossible. It's not like hard or only Maverick could do it. It's just like a physical human impossibility. It's not clear that he does eject. If you watch the thing closely, I mean, you made this point this morning, that he futzes with some controls and he knows it's all gone wrong. Yeah. But it's not clear he presses the eject button. Right. And eject things are things he famously has trouble with in both movies, right? That always seems to go wrong for him. Yeah. And there are very stylized elements of the movie when it enters, if we assume Maverick is dead, the Bardo phase. Like, where does he land? He seems to land in 1950s Montana or something. Yeah. I mean, it's bizarre. There's all these people in a diner with, plaid shirts on from the 50s. The whole of the rest of the movie seems like bizarrely out of time. There's very little that pins it to being in 2022. Maverick has a BlackBerry, but that's about it. But even the texting is surreal. Right, it's extremely precise. They use punctuation. He doesn't do anything else on the BlackBerry other than text. Iceman. It's a really weird use of electronics. The fashion and the look of the movie are really ahistorical. They're somewhere between all the characters look like they're in either 1986, but then in 1986 they look like they were in 1950 anyway. Like the whole thing takes place in this surreal.
Penny's bar, for example, is a really good example of this, right? This is a bar that's got a pool table, it's got a dartboard, it's got an old school jukebox,
a piano
with an old school piano, right?
And it's run by
cowbells that she rings.
And there's about 1,000 people in all the time, and it's run by Penny and some vague old dude who wanders back and forth. And then at one point, Penny's gone. I don't know where she's gone. It's like, well, who's going to run the bar tonight? Yeah, Walter or whoever you are. And many surreal scenes take place in that. In that very setting. It seems to be the most supernatural of the settings in the movie. And in particular, the most famous one that I think is the big tell that this theory might be true is after Maverick gets thrown out of the bar, he's forced to watch Goose's son Rooster, the embodiment of Goose, reenact the Great Balls of Fire. And Maverick is excluded from it. And why is he excluded from it? It's because he's dead. So what do you make of this?
There's another way. So I actually think that there's potentially more powerful evidence even, right? That this is really onto something here, which is the change in Maverick character between before the test plane explodes and then everything that happens after. And this kind of piggybacks on what I was saying earlier about how I have a hard time imagining these two characterizations as of being of the same person. Think back to the first 15 minutes of the movie, right, of Top Gun Maverick. What do we see out of him? Well, we see a very lonely guy, right, who doesn't seem to have anything in his life. The camera does fixate on his monthly calendar, and I actually went in and really paid close attention to what was marked on the calendar. It's all work stuff.
Yes.
There's nothing about hobbies. There's nothing about, and including on weekends, right? There's nothing, he hasn't marked anybody's birthday. He's just consumed completely with his job. He lives in a hangar, apparently. And it seems like he reads technical manuals for, in his off time. Then think about what happens. Why does the plane explode? Right? He's met the goal. Like, he hit Mach 10, right? But he keeps pushing it and pushing it. Why? What's the value in that? Right? Allegedly, the only thing that has to happen for the possibility of maintaining the project and not having it shut down is for it to hit Mach 10.
Right.
So why does he keep going? Well, it's because there's this kind of, devil may care, I look at me, I can do the things that other people can't do. There's kind of a authority that's going on there as well. It's all pretty consistent with a lot of what we see out of the original movie, right? This kind of, ability to be boisterous and, a word that you like, insouciant, right? That doesn't happen ever again.
Yeah.
In the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
He is, in ways that I was trying to articulate earlier, a pretty profoundly different person for the rest of the movie than in those first 15 minutes. And he behaves as one can imagine is his what happens right in the rest of the movie? Well, let's tick off his regrets. So we know them one by one.
The things that he's trying to make right.
Okay. So he wanted to be a Top Gun instructor and a mentor to others, and he failed out of that miserably. So what does he do? He goes back and he becomes not just an effective Top Gun, like a heroic instructor. Literally saves students' lives, right?
Right.
What else does he regret?
And gets to be not only the teacher but also the lead pilot on the mission.
Yeah. See, he's got profound regrets over his disintegrating relationship with Rooster, right? That he's tried to act as a father figure, but it's failed. He knows that it's failed. So what happens here? That relationship is repaired and rescued.
Right.
His relationship with Penny, which he clearly has profound regrets over, right? This is a lifelong on-again, off-again relationship. They're clearly meant for each other, but they can't get along, right? Well, is there any hint in the rest of the movie that these two aren't just absolutely perfect fits?
Yes.
They don't have even a single disagreement.
Yes.
There's not even a single sideways glance.
Right.
So what is the tension that for a lifetime has kept them apart?
Yeah.
Suddenly dissolved and gone. Everything that happens, it seems to me, it's all about reconciling all of his major regrets.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. In a way that leads Maverick to be his projected best self.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's different than what we see in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I suppose I'm going to come down against this theory. And this is why. Because I think this theory allows for less growth in the Maverick character.
Yes.
Because all of the growth comes
does.
after he's dead.
Yes.
And I suppose you could say it's kind of positive that his projected best self is not just he got to sleep with 10 more women and killed 30 more, of the indistinct enemy. Yeah. He knew he had a better self, I suppose you would say is the best thing you could say about Maverick's death dream, if that's really what happened. But I prefer the idea, and I think the two movies work better in continuity with one another if there are redeemable elements in young Maverick that are present in the 25-year-old that are paid off in the 60-year-old, than if the real Maverick is permanently stuck at 25, and then only gets redemption in the death dream. Yeah. I think you and maybe lean towards the Maverick in the Bardo explanation.
Sort of do.
Because it allows you to maintain that negative view of the Maverick character. while still enjoying the second movie and finding it a less obnoxious or alienating experience.
I would reframe it because I think it's meaningful, right? That what the Bardo experience makes clear is that Maverick he has a self-awareness.
Yeah, he knows he fell short.
Right? That is the actual trigger towards growth.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would reframe that. I don't think it's a tragedy necessarily.
Okay.
Right? I think it's, it points to, I mean, it's come late, right? But...
Well, it is the last millisecond of his
life. Last millisecond.
Couldn't get much later.
He didn't conjure it from out of nowhere.
No, he'd been living with these.
Right.
Yeah.
So it points to could be a lack of opportunity, a lack of will, right?
Yes.
But it actually, I think, makes the character more sympathetic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of freezing the character in this eternal state of.
That's interesting.
Of immature.
And it does solve a cinematographic or a narrative mystery in the movie, which is why there are no deaths in this movie.
Yes.
Right. Which
there should be.
That to parallel the first one, which they did in every other respect, there should be a major death, and the whole narrative seems to be leading.
It's an impossible mission.
Seems to be leading
2 miracles, Stephen.
Yeah. Well, and actually
actually 3 miracles because they got to get out.
Yep.
And not get shot down.
Yeah. Well, John Hamm says 2 because he doesn't care about the third one. But there's even more foreshadowing because Maverick says at one point early in the movie, the first time he sees the mission, he's like, "No, someone's not coming back from this."
Exactly.
And it's just classical.
And he says it over and over again,
foreshadowing that it would be him.
Yeah.
Who's not? And then the act of the way in which he would have died, in which it was logical he was going to die, and the whole weight of the movie in narrative terms, and then just in very obvious cinematographic terms, in terms of the choice of music and of shots and all the rest of it, is leading you to think that when Maverick takes the missile from Rooster, that is Maverick's death scene, and it's heroic and it's a crescendo, and it's satisfying because it would be redeeming the loss of Goose by saving Goose's son, which is the number one thing Goose would want his best friend to do if he could do anything more for him. And Maverick doesn't die. And actually the last sort of 15 minutes of the movie are really quite strange in a way that comes close, I think, to a misstep.
Yes.
Which is, all of a sudden, they're like behind enemy lines, and it's a different movie. Yeah.
But
and
the Maverick and the Bardo moment could be...
Oh, he could die at that point.
It could be later.
So there are actually 2 possible Maverick in the back. 1, he dies in the test flight. 2, he does actually die saving Rooster. And then he has this death dream where they kind of tool across the enemy airfield. And the tone of that is weird. They suddenly start cracking jokes. Whereas it's been unbelievably serious. There's been no music throughout that whole mission. You're like, my God, someone's going to die. And it's really good movie making. It's really tense. It's really immersive. But it then seems strange to have the sort of almost comic relief of, and then they're in the F-14 from 1986.
Yes.
And you expect that they'll turn the car radio on, and Kenny Loggins is on.
And then they're then he's reenacting in that final death dream. He's back with Goose.
Yeah, and they're flying. They're flying together.
Yeah.
In a way that's probably not plausible given the technological gap between a 1986 aircraft and a 2020 aircraft, and the whole thing seems strange. In a way that does suggest there's something surreal going on.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yes.